Yo. What's up, everyone? Thank you, Drill. Thank you, Dubious. I appreciate it. How y'all doing? Welcome on in, Val Creative as well. Welcome to Saturday stream. I woke up very late. I slept through my alarm. That's why I needed more time. It's because I woke up about, well, actually, right when I messaged the Discord, I was like, guys, I need a couple extra minutes. Thank goodness I did all of my prep work yesterday. You know, it was just a little extra time for me to wake up. That could have been... Imagine if I didn't do any prep work. Oh, that could have been so bad. It could have been so bad. All right, we're gonna listen to some beachside music real quick while we hang out at the beach for a minute. Welcome on in, everyone. Welcome on in. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I have some announcements to go over before we get into anything, and a lot of it is very exciting. Though, if I was being smart, I would have grabbed the graphics before I entered stream. Which I am doing right now. If anyone is going to be at Anime Central in 2 weeks, guess what? The cat, that's all that, is going to be there. It's going to be great. Let me just get this little schedule out. Boom! Anime Central! I'm going to be there. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I'm also going to be at another convention like the week after that. So I'm going to be making the tour again. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. So if anyone's going to any of these, feel free to say hi. Love to see you. Love to see you. So needless to say, in 2 weeks' time, we will not have our normal Saturday stream because I'll be doing this. I might stream it though. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. But that's announcement number one. Like I said, we got another one coming. We're getting the next music album started, but I think I already announced that. We have... I feel like I'm missing another announcement, but I'll remember it as we're just sitting here talking, vibing, you know. So, did anyone see that FaZe Connect is getting new members? That's kind of exciting. There's a new FaZe Invaders branch that is coming. If not this, well, it was coming pretty soon. Hold on. I gotta relook that up. But it was coming pretty dang quick. Oh, it is today. Okay, yeah, it is today. We got Cleo, Mari, and EP Sleepy, who are joining FaZe Invaders, which is pretty cool. Nice to see that FaZe Connect is seemingly still doing fine, given the turbulent nature of everything else going on, you know? Whether you like them or not, some sense of stability is probably a good thing. But, that's cool. First bit of like positive news in the ocean about of shenanigans going on. Yeah, Mari is joining FaZe Connect. That was interesting to me. Not for any real reason. I was just like, oh, that wasn't on my my bucket or my my guest list, I guess. But then again, I didn't even know that FaZe Connect was doing another Invaders wave. So who knows, right? Should be interesting to see. Yeah. So we got 3 more FaZe Connect. That's gonna be pretty sick. As always, guys, for anyone who's joining explicitly for VRoyale is going to be in about 20 or so minutes. You know, we like to do a little bit of yapping before we hop into things. Today's presentation will be a slightly deeper dive to VRoyale, which is great. I'll be honest, I had no idea about the wave either, but I'm pleasantly surprised. I watch all the streamers that are joining. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. These are like, this is the first time, admittedly, where people have joined a corporate company that I'm like, wait, I actually kind of know these channels. I knew about them. VShojo, you know, outside of VShojo, I definitely knew about them, you know. Cause like, who wouldn't? Yeah, it's kind of cool. You know what's funny is I feel like FaZe got a lot of like now this could be just my own my own perception of things, but I feel like FaZe kind of got like a lot of negative press in the beginning, and then there's just kind of been no news about them. Like they've all been doing stuff, but it really does feel like in the VTuber world, if you're not hearing about a company, they're probably doing okay. Because if you're hearing about them, they either had a gigantic, huge event, or more likely, there's some new drama bomb that dropped about them, right? That seems to be the only two ends of the spectrum. So, I feel like a lot of the time, no news is good news when it comes to corporations, which is really funny to me. But, you know, it is what it is. Oh, gosh. Good times, man. Good times. Let's see. Other news. What's the other news? I forgot what my other news was. I keep forgetting what my other news was. I need to go back to writing things down, but I was kind of rushed to, you know, get the stream out, you know? Because we got to talk about VRoyale and some cool stuff that I think they're doing. I'm not gonna lie, I actually like really like doing these like should you play streams, because it lets me deep dive research into a game and be like, oh, they're doing this thing now that they weren't doing like 2 months ago. And so there's some, for those of you who watch the comparing VRoyale, Oshi Push, and VCard video, there are some new updates to VRoyale, which I think are very good things. I'm very excited. I know there's a joke for a while that Hololive wins by doing nothing, but you see, that's the funny part is like, I feel like most of the time, if you have a plan, you're executing it, and you're not making like gigantic waves, yeah, you're probably not getting as many eyeballs on whatever you're doing as you could be. But you're also you're staying in your lane. You're getting stuff done. Yo, what's up, Radio Robin? How you doing, man? Welcome. We're talking about VTuber card games. It's gonna be good. Honestly, I'm always interested to learn about the card games. Yeah, there's another one that I want to add to this list. I want to talk about is it V Daisho? V Daishi? Ah, shoot, I don't remember the other name. There's another card game that is out there that looked kind of interesting, and it actually has some people that I know of in it, which I was like, huh, how did I not hear about this until like, I guess it was like a couple weeks ago now at this point, but I thought that was interesting. I'm doing well, Robin. I'm doing well. Definitely didn't almost oversleep the stream though. Definitely did not do that. What other shenanigans are happening in the card game world? I think the card game world's kind of dying down a little bit right now. Though, to be fair, guys, like tariffs right now are probably going to kill a lot of momentum on a lot of the card game stuff that is happening right now. Well, I say that, but then again, I don't actually know where the majority of like cards are produced. Is that in China or is that like a Japan thing? I don't actually know. Yo, what's up, Nap? How you doing? I actually don't know where most cards are produced. I know where like most everything else is produced because, you know, I work in that industry, but not cards. Cards I don't actually know, but I would assume China, but who knows? Who needs sleep? I need sleep. Robin, I need sleep. Not right now though, because I actually got plenty of sleep last night. I slept through my alarm. That's all it was. I'm really curious how the card game landscape is going to change once the revised version of V card shows up, and B, what the set twos of a lot of other card games are going to feel like, because so far now Oshi Push has not released yet, so there's not like an initial reaction to Oshi Push yet, because no one actually has the cards, right? But the initial reaction to V card was very negative, so much so that they had to basically redo the entire game. From what I can tell, the reaction to VRoyale was mostly positive, with some concerns about things like pricing and small card size. And so I'm really curious to see what small card diversity. And then I'm curious as to what the reaction to Oshi Push once it's fully released is, because Oshi Push has had plenty of people, you know, talking about it in both good and positive before it's even out, right? Like I've been extremely positive about it, mostly because I've, you know, had a lot of behind the scenes action, and there have been plenty of like Kickstarter problems that I think have mostly been addressed, but the main thing is it's just not in the hands of the people who bought it yet. And so once people actually have it, I'll be very curious to know what they feel. Yo, what's up, Bustery? How you doing? But then after that, the set twos for all the card games, because I think everyone has announced set twos, or that there will at least be set twos for all the games. That, I think, is where we're going to see which game will have the longest runtime, quite honestly. Because anyone can make an initial release, in my opinion. Like, it can be scuffed, it can be whatever, but like most people, I think, can get a set one out the door and, you know, get the hype off of it, maybe make money off of it, you know, that type of a thing. It's set twos and beyond, and that I think will show, you know, how long the game is going to actually last. I need sleep now next morning, sports festival, but like anybody we're going to care, so I'm just here to say bye and then bye. Hey, no worries. Thanks for dropping by, Bestery. Actually, I should message the Oshi Push team. I don't know when they're making their next like announcement. I'm curious. I'm glad card collecting is still thriving outside of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? Also, come on in, Lady Deathmane. And I think you're right, Majora's Mask. I think that a card game surviving past a year or two really does mean that it's going to stick around for a while. I think that is a pretty decent marker for it. I have a little bit higher hope for Oshi Push than I do the others, just because Japanime Games does kind of have a history of doing stuff. But ultimately, it's really going to come down to how fun is the game and how many people actually want to play it. I think V Card will always have an audience because it's going to be a collector's thing, because it's, you know, gamer subs. VRoyale is probably also just going to continue to exist because it's Merryweather and he wants to make the game good, and, you know, it's tied in with their lore and everything. I already know that Merryweather does like a lot of good lore stuff. You know, things like that. Hey, just made a coffee and just vibing lurking here since I don't know anything about VTuber cards. Well, if you stick around, Lady Deathbane, you're about to find out a lot about VTuber cards. Or at least one of the games. At least one of the games. There's someone I watch who talks a lot about TCGs and refers to it as the 2-year curse. Well, I mean, that's most, it's not even just a TCG thing. I think it's most like business type projects. They tend to collapse under their own weight after a year, 2 or 3. That's not just a TCG thing. That's like in every type of business thing. They tend to collapse around that time. Because most people, when they're first starting off with a project, they have a lot of like initial starter money that is what lets them like actually do the project, and that will last for a while. But if they can't turn it profitable, then it's just like a slow death. In fact, I think the only one who it has kind of shown that they're not on that path out of all the games, I think the one that showed that it's actually growing is probably Rift Runners, because Rift Runners has just been getting better over time, like substantially better with its art and stuff. Like it's making real big improvements, and it's got a very dedicated community to it. It's not huge, but there is a dedicated community, which is pretty cool. It's a power creep thing. Newer cards slowly get overpowered. But yeah, that usually takes a while, right? Like unless you're releasing several sets a year, which for these smaller card game projects isn't really a thing, then it takes a while. I do think that that's where a lot of card games eventually go. Especially if you have like a small dev team, it's hard to get people excited about the new cards if they're not that much different than the old cards and things like that. However, I do think that it takes a long time to get to that power creep for card games. Because I think ability creep is a little bit more, or utility creep is a little bit more common for card games. Because like power creep, yeah, we can all admit that that's an issue, right? But I think utility creep is the real insidious killer of card games. Is because like take Lana War Elves for example from Magic, where it's tap, add a green mana. Can you imagine what would happen if they added just a straight up better Lana War Elves? Like it's tap, add a green mana, or tap, do some other effect as well, right? The utility creep is, I think, where it gets really hard. Give me a lot of things. For example, I know of a game that died because it introduced set rotation in such an aggressive way that people would have to buy entirely new cards to stay in, so they left. Yeah, I could also see that. That would also be very difficult. I don't know. Card games are hard, dude. They're really hard. I don't know anyone who has like all of the answers, right? So really we'll just have to see how things are in a year or two and see how it goes. Hey, welcome on in, Maho and Danny. How you doing? There's a point where it's hard to keep up with the FX and video games or live service games because it's necessary to keep track of everything. So true. The only reason Pokemon is able to pull off set rotation is because it's Pokemon. Yeah. Yeah. So on some level, I do think that set rotation is a good thing. Because I played Magic back when like standard was still a thing, like a long time ago standard. And I do think it rotated out a little too fast, but it was kind of nice knowing that you would eventually stop seeing the same kind of deck if you played standard. Because there was nothing more boring to me during the Lorwyn era of entering a tournament and it was just like 9 fairy players and then maybe 7 other people who were like playing like out of the remaining 7, 4 would probably be Kithkin, and then the other 3 would, or the other 2 would be some random deck, right? So I'm actually kind of a fan of set rotation, purely because if it's a game you're actively playing, it is nice to actually see other cards being played. Because the longer you keep a card like within rotation, the more meta it becomes, the more standard it becomes, the more like everyone uses this card, right? And to a certain degree, that's what happens in Magic Commander, right? Is there are some staple cards in so many decks. I got you, kitty. You got punched in high school. What's while playing Magic? Jeez. Oof. So I don't know. It's got some good stuff. I think set rotation is good. It just needs to be done right. And I'm also a big fan of reprints when you're doing set rotations. Because sometimes, you know, sometimes people really do just like a card, right? And in my opinion, I think that people should be able to use that card if they really, really like it. Sometimes. And then, you know, it gets a new artwork treatment. It gets put somewhere else. It just looks kind of cool. I mean, like, how many versions of Soul Ring are there at this point, right? There's so many. But, I don't know. We'll see. And an elf card that healed for every health or elf card on the field and they punched me in the leg. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. Set rotation also helps keep power creep in check. MTG tends to introduce small waves of power creep, but it brings it back down as cards get rotated out compared to Yu-Gi-Oh! That is stupid power creep. Dude, I don't even want... I know that there's like a diehard Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, but every time I even like think about looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! I see the combo decks and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, my brain can't handle this right now. I don't want to learn this. I really don't. It's just, it's too much. It's too much, man. It's too much. It's enough that multiple projects that I've seen, including the Rift Runners, by the way, one of their biggest things is taking Yu-Gi-Oh! Back to where they think it should be. Which is like, it's like, you know, in like WoW private servers, right? Where people are like, retail got too out of, they got too out of hand. We need to go back to classic to fix it. That's like the vibe that I get for a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff. They introduced an entirely new format with rush duels. It's much simpler and enjoyable. They just refuse to localize it. Interesting. It feels so bad for my opponent when I play my Toon deck, and Toons are considered fairly weak by comparison. I'm swinging for 7,500 by turn 2. Yeah, that's... okay. Okay, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. Card games are crazy. I thought Yu-Gi-Oh! Went OT around the time Zexal and Exceed summons came in, and then they introduced Pendulum summoning. No, I don't... What? Those... Why are there so many summon names? That's crazy. What are we doing? Are we playing a gacha game but with a card game? That sounds like, that literally sounds like a gacha game. Because you know how gacha games have like 15 different summons for like whatever? It's like, oh, this is a special summon. This is a secret rare summon. This is a Arc Link summon. It's like, it sounds like a gacha game. It just sounds like a gacha game. Like, seriously. But you know what? Whatever. Good old power creep. Good old power creep. But whatever. It is what it is, I guess. Yu-Gi-Oh's bouncing mechanic is one normal summon per turn, except almost everything has a way around it. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. That's why, like, I see anything Yu-Gi-Oh related and I'm like, you know what? Maybe we don't talk about this right now. Maybe we just don't deal with this. Oh well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, it's about time. You guys ready to talk about VRoyale, the Merryweather Media TCG? We've got about a nice half hour of yapping. Now we get to talk about a Yu-Gi-Oh! Crossed with Magic card game by Merryweather's own admission. So let's go ahead and boop. Should you play VRoyale? We're going to swap the music up just a little bit. I'm going to get something a little bit more vibey, chilly. Should we just listen to like some barista music? Yeah, let's do that. All right, we got some nice vibe music. We're going to talk about VRoyale, Merryweather Media's card game. This is our second time talking about it, but this is a little bit more of a deep dive, going into some of the mechanics, what I think about the game, and hopefully this gives you a little bit better picture of what is going on with the game. So, what is VRoyale? It's a ground battle involving your favorite VTubers condensed into a playable card game for 2 or more players. In glorious spectacle, VRoyale will have all the plot twists and drama from the most chaotic collaboration you could dream of, all in the palm of your hand. Most of these quotes are going to come directly from the website, so just keep that in mind. But what is some cool stuff about VRoyale? Well, it's made by Merryweather, and anyone who knows Merryweather is they don't really half-ass anything. If they want something done, they go out of their way to make it as cool as they possibly can. There's a whole big studio behind them. The promo videos for VRoyale are like the animated story type stuff. That's pretty cool. So, you know, if it's being made by Merryweather, it's gonna be pretty sweet. There's actually a typo here. There's actually 17 VTubers total. Instead of 16 plus all of Astroline, I miscounted. It's all of Astroline, of which there are 5, plus 12 VTubers. So there's actually a total of 17 people in the game. Other cool stuff. It's already had a competitive tournament. Let's try that again. It's already had a competitive tournament, and there are erratas for cards. And one nice thing is if you're looking on their website, guess what? The card says updated. And not only does it show updated on the website, if you click on it, it shows what the original text was and what the new text was. That is so nice. I really like how this information is presented. If you're gonna do an errata, it needs to be immediately identifiable which cards have changed. VRoyale did this wonderfully. Love that. And for the record, a lot of these erratas are not super big. There were wording choices that needed to be changed. Like the one that comes to mind is there's a Rin Penrose card, which says on each turn, summon or collab or commission. That's what it is. Commission is their version of summon. Commission a 1/1 shark token. That was only supposed to be on your turn, but because the card said each turn, that means it was doing it during your opponent's turn as well. As a point of comparison, how did V-Card handle erratas? They have all the new cards up on the site, but if you did not know that V-Card did a lot of changes, you would just see the card list as it is. I really like that when they're doing erratas, they go out of their way to highlight, hey, this card is not what the base card is anymore. Now, V card, I guess it doesn't really make sense for them to do that because they changed literally every card. So, but if they make any more changes, I would like them to be easily findable. So that's just a point of comparison. So we're going to go over the details. This list has changed a little bit. We're going to be talking about deck building, card types, gameplay, art, price, and of course, community support. VRoyale does something kind of interesting with deck building. First of all, each deck is 30 cards total, and the amount of cards you can put in a deck is limited by the rarity. So you can only have 1 special rare non-leader card, 2 special rare leader cards, 10 total rares, and there's no limit on commons or uncommons, though you can see the individual card limits themselves. So even though you can have 2 leaders, you can only have 1 of a specific leader and then 1 of another leader. Very interesting. This is probably the most interesting part of VRoyale to me, is this deck building concept, because it kind of, we're gonna talk about it a little bit more at the end, but it does kind of enforce a power level that everyone has to play by, which is kind of interesting. I'm kind of a fan of that. Kind of cool, in my opinion. Next up, we have card types. There are 4 card types. There are leader, which is, think of it like as a commander in Magic almost. It does a lot of stuff. Usually these are the cards that you're building your deck around. Character, these are just things that go on the field that will, you know, have various effects. They're not nearly as powerful as leader cards, but they're pretty good. Highlights, which are kind of like instants from Magic. They do a thing and then they go away. And then there's events, which are things that stay on the field and they change the playing field, either in the short term or the long term. I'm not sure I like the idea of it being tied to rarities, though. I worry about it encouraging the Yu-Gi-Oh mentality. Yes, that is a problem, and we will talk about that in just a little bit. So first up, leader cards. Leader cards are the core of any manager strategy. By the way, players are referred to as managers. These cards are immensely powerful and can turn the tide in the blink of an eye. Like I said, leader cards have a lot of very powerful abilities, though there are some weaker ones and some stronger ones. And we'll get into the strategy a little bit as we go over the actual gameplay mechanics. Character cards are the primary way managers will battle. They'll be your sword, shield, as well as having synergistic abilities with your leaders. For example, if you have a leader that generates dinosaur tokens, which is a thing, there's probably a character that can buff those tokens or create more of them or do a lot of that. There's a lot of synergistic stuff built into both the leaders and the characters. Next up, highlights. Highlights are single-use effect cards that can be played on any turn, including your opponent's. Use them to surprise, disrupt, or empower your characters. They're instants. They do a lot of cool stuff. There are ones that are just like, hey, draw cards, or hey, reveal cards, pick one, put the other one on bottom, or maybe you remove a opponent's character or leader or something like that. And then finally are event cards. These are basically enchantments from Magic. I know I'm using a lot of Magic comparison, but by Merriweather's own volition, this is supposed to feel like old school Yu-Gi-Oh crossed with Magic. So I don't think using Magic terms is disrespectful here. But event cards are persistent effects that can both level or upend the playing field. These can stack and result in increasing amounts of chaos. From the tournaments that I have watched, boy howdy do they increase chaos. So now that we know what all the cards are like, what's the actual gameplay? Well, it's similar to Magic the Gathering. You have 20 sanity or life. Once you reach 0, you lose. The game is played in phases with an initial main setup phase, and then there are 5 phases that follow. Starting phase, resource step, main step, combat phase, and then resolution phase. And here's a nice little graphic from the website to show what it is. If you are familiar with Magic the Gathering, the play style, for the most part, is going to feel very similar. There are things that are similar to mana. There's things that are similar to, playing creatures and like summoning sickness and things like that. They call them very different things, but if you've played Magic, you'll probably be able to pick up on what VRoyale is trying to do fairly quickly. So we're going to start with the initial phase, starting phase. Clear all combat damage from the previous turn. Oh, I didn't add the setup phase in here. Hold on. We're calling a quick audible here. I did not, wait, did I really not put in the setup phase? Hold on. Wait, we're gonna, wait, I swear I did this. Did I accidentally delete it? I think I did. Hold on. That's funny. I did. Okay, well. Actually, we're gonna remove that one. All right, well, you guys are gonna see me make this in real time because thankfully VRoyale has all the graphics that I was using for this, because why make my own when they have really nice ones? Okay. Let's shrink that down a little bit. All right. We're back. There we go. Whoopsie doopsie indeed, right? All right, so this is the main setup. You have a maximum hand size of 5. So you're obviously going to draw 5 cards. But the most important thing is, out of the two leaders that you get in the deck, you get to pick one as your center. Basically, this is the leader that you are going to start with. So from what I have seen and read in the Discord, is the common strategy is you have an initial leader who is just kind of there to build like they're usually a value engine. They're trying to make sure that you survive the early game, that you can play the big leader card later as long as you draw it. You also do get a free mulligan, which is very nice. And then you get to decide who goes first. This is the setup phase. Not too much to talk about here. I do love, though, that it especially mentions fisticuffs or armed duel as a way to decide who goes first. Thought that that was a really nice touch. Love that. But then we get into the actual beginning of the game. So something I thought that was very interesting is at the starting phase, so this is the very first phase of the game, or the turn, is you clear combat damage at the start of your turn. Which usually I thought, so I know Magic clears it at the end. Just that was very interesting. Just, I don't know why. I don't know why that's interesting to me. It just is. But then you reserve all start of turn effects. You untilt or untap all cards. Tilting is how you signify that something is being used. You draw a card, and if you can't draw a card, then you lose sanity for every card you cannot draw. And it stacks with itself. So if you can't draw 1 card, you take 1 damage. If you can't draw 2 cards, you take 3 damage, because you take 1 damage and then 2 damage. You can't draw 3 cards, you take 6 sanity damage, because you take 1, 2, and then 3. So running out of cards, probably not a good thing. I don't know if I saw that happen in any of the tournaments I was watching, but I wasn't able to watch all games. Next up is the main phase, or the resource step. So here is what makes V card pretty interesting. Each turn, one card may be placed in a resource pool as a star card. For purposes of resolving abilities and effects, adding a star card to the pool does not count as playing a card. Star cards are played face down. Their resource value is equal to the number of the stars at the bottom of the card, typically responding or corresponding to that card's rarity. So in VRoyale, you use the cards in your hand as mana. Once you make and every card has a star value, that's also denoted by the rarity. So like a 3-star would be a common, a 4-star would be an uncommon, a 5-star would be a rare, I believe. And so the only way that you can get mana or the ability to play things is by taking a card from your hand, placing it face down, and using it as your mana. That's super interesting to me because it puts value in, like, oh, you got a really strong card right now, and you can either use, like, hold that to play it later, or if you really want to kickstart your turn, you can put the really expensive card face down so you can never play it, but it kickstarts your engine. That's kind of a fun strategic thing to do, in my opinion. Next up, we have the main phase, main step. You can already see some of the Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic creeping in here because they have multiple steps within a step. But the main phase, managers can play up to 3 cards on their turn. That's it. Unless, of course, a card specifies otherwise. Managers may activate and play activate card effects during the main phase. You pay the star cost by tilting an equivalent number of star cards to provide the cost required. Cost for cards and abilities, i.e. graduate an untilted non-leader character effect, can only be paid for with cards and characters under your control. Any star resource generated this way does not stick around until the next turn. So this is pretty simple mana usage. I think it's interesting that you can only play 3 cards a turn. So with how much things cost and how much resources you have and the limit on the number of cards you have in hand, it doesn't usually seem like you'll be playing more than 3 cards in a turn. Just interesting that they call it out. All right, combat phase. This is a big old chunk of text. So combat phase does not occur on the first person's turn. Surprise, surprise. Kind of nice. So the first person doesn't just get free damage off. This is very similar to Magic and its summoning sickness and things like that. Attack can only be declared during the combat phase of that manager's turn. Characters must be untilted to attack. When declaring an attack, tilt the assigned attacking character. I'm not going to read all of this because most of this is just Magic based, with the exception that tilted characters can be used to defend, but their attack is considered to be 0. So you can't damage an opponent's character if your characters are tilted. That seemed very Yu-Gi-Oh to me, but I think even in Yu-Gi-Oh, oh wait, no, Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't destroy monsters for being in defense mode, right? That's not a thing? I don't think so. But it's my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge is a little out of date at this point, if you can't tell. But the point is tilted characters don't do damage. And if you don't block an opponent's attack, then it goes right to you and it damages your sanity. You can block with multiple creatures, and there's a whole bunch of effects that can happen that can either go around it. Like there's raid that will do damage if you exceed the hit points of a character, or there's clip, which lets you hit first. It's kind of like first strike. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that. But otherwise, this is pretty similar to Magic, attack, defense, stuff like that. Next up is, oh wait, actually no, sorry. One point is though you can't block with a tapped creature in Magic, though you can block with this one. Hey, what's up, Blank? How you doing? So that's the main difference. Is Magic you can't block with tapped or tilted creatures. We're going to use their terminology. In this game, you can. So if you just need a blocker, tilting doesn't stop you from doing so. Thought that was kind of nice. All right, resolution phase. Characters that receive damage equal to their total hit point are graduated on resolution of the combat phase. Damage inflicted taken does not carry over to the next combat phase. Awesome. Graduated characters are sent to the graduation zone. Any graduation zone effects or post-combat effects can then resolve, prioritizing the defending manager. Any cards in either manager's hand over the hand limit of 5 are sent to the graduation zone. The manager may select which to discard. Then the game begins anew with the other person starting on their turn. Again, this is going to feel very Magic-y with how the turn order goes. It's you go, you do a bunch of things, and your opponent goes, they do a bunch of things, and it's back and forth until one of you reaches 0 sanity. Here's just some terms from the game. There are more. I just took one to show, kind of what's going on here. So like an asset. Assets don't have attack and HP. They can't be used to attack and defend. Commissions are whenever you create something as a result of the card effect. Counters are their counters. They are put on cards to do things. Debut is to play from hand. Debut burnout is basically summoning sickness. Graduate is to be sent to the graduation zone via combat. Main stage is the main playing area. Manager is the people. Roster is the deck. Tilt is to tilt. And tokens are there's tokens. There's not too much to talk about. In the midst of studying for finals, I shan't be long. Hey, well, thanks for dropping by anyways. Love to have you here. That is the big selling point for VRoyale, I think, is they do name the theming, like the theming and the lore behind the characters is spot on, which I think was their intended goal. So they did that wonderfully, in my opinion. Next up is art. We're just gonna, now most of this is subjective. However, there are a few things that I do feel the need to point out. One is you're going to notice there's a lot of just model art. This is because a partner that Merryweather Media was working with pulled out on them, and they kind of had to go ahead with the art that they had for cards and make things not quite the way that they would have liked to have made them. This has been addressed by Merryweather. They've made, or he has announced that set 2 will not have this problem. I do just want to point that out. But for the art, or for the cards that do have, unique art, I think they look pretty good. I think they look nice. And I do say I really like the overall design for the card. I think it flows nice for the most part. Because now we're going to talk about what I think is arguably the weakest point of VRoyale. Pricing. A booster box is 10 packs and there are only 5 cards per pack. And I would suspect that tariffs are probably going to change this. But this is what the pricing is right now. It's $49.99 for a box of 10 or $5.49 for a single booster pack. I really like that you can buy singles. That is something that I wish the other games also did. But, it's nice that they have it. However, you will notice that's pretty expensive if you're looking for a cards per dollar value. It's quite literally $1 per card. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we get to the my thoughts about the game section. As for accessories, there's not really any right now. I think that they are working on some, but I can't confirm or deny that right now. But let's go back to being nice and positive about stuff. Community support. The official Discord has a lot of good stuff in it. They have people asking questions. They have the devs clarifying rules. This feels very similar to the Rift Runners Discord, where people are quite active in there and they want to talk about and play the game. So that's really nice. The website with the rules is very easy to read. And more importantly, they have giant links that send you directly to the community. Thank you. I wish all the games did that, but it's very easy to find the community of people playing the game from the official website. It's super easy. There's a big giant Discord button in the middle of the screen. Be like, hey, you want to play it? Go here. Awesome. Wonderful. The tabletop simulator, in my opinion, I think is the best looking one because they have one for deck building and they have one for playing. And they both look really, really nice. So love that for them. I think they did great. And what I think is arguably one of the biggest points in its favor, community run tournaments. There's actually people outside of the Astroline team who are trying to run community tournaments. That's pretty cool. Big fan of that. So let's talk about my thoughts. What are the pros of this game? Has a very similar feel to Magic, which to me is a big positive. If you know how to play Magic, you'll probably pick this up pretty quick. I think that's a good thing. It's different enough that it's not just Magic, but there's enough. It's not trying to break the mold in too different of a way that it feels alien, right? I think that's in general a good thing. I really like how the card design just kind of looks, with an exception that we will talk about in the cons. I like the nice black and gold. Like, I don't know. I really like how that looks. That's pretty sick. They were probably the fastest to do updates to their rules. And they did the erratas. They ran a tournament. They saw things were broken, errated it. They I don't know. There's not really a different way to say it. They just actively and quickly fix problems with the game as they arise. It also focuses on a VTuber's lore to make each character feel very unique. If you are playing Merryweather, boy howdy do you feel like you're playing Merryweather. This is a huge point in its favor. Like, they tried to tailor all of the abilities and things directly to the VTuber's lore to really make it shine. There's not really another card game that does that. Now, I do think that that comes with its own drawbacks, but for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. They care about a VTuber's lore to the point where they can make the cards really fit them. I'm a pretty decent fan of that. Pretty big fan of that. It also ties in with Astroline lore, so it's like continued world building. That's just more on the lore point. I think that's pretty cool. And I like the deck building locking rarity, which means power scaling is more balanced. There's only 4 rarities of cards, so it's not like you're hunting for like some super secret rare to make your deck work. I like that it has a built-in power level locking, but this is also a con, which we'll get into here. I don't have as many bullet points for the cons, but I have a lot more general ideas that I want to talk about. So first off, elephant in the room, this is expensive. Building decks is expensive. To build a 30 card deck for what you need, you might not be able to build the kind of deck you want with buying a single booster box. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be able to build a top tier deck from a single box purchase, but the fact that you only get 50 cards, I think, is probably its biggest weakness. You have to buy like probably 2 to get enough to actually make a deck or 2. I think that's a very big con. It's very expensive. There is a tabletop sim version. Yes, I showed that in the community support. There is a very good tabletop sim version. And then also someone mentioned that like the text is a little legible. some cards have a little too much going on, in my opinion. There are some ones that have there's no starter deck. So I believe that they're working on that. There are some things that I'm going to talk about that they've said for set 2 that are very promising, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, some cards, there's a lot going on with some of the cards. It's like you're reading a novel. And I know some people are into that, but sometimes like simplicity in a card game was a good thing. And things can get a little out of hand. To the point where it really does feel like if you're playing a Merryweather deck, you need to be playing all of Merryweather's cards plus a different leader that synergizes with Mary's cards. That's where the deck building does feel a little constrictive from what I've seen of like, there's a little too much positive synergy between some people. And that might just be solved with a bigger card pool, which coincidentally enough is our third con. There are only 94 total cards, I believe is what it was, with some alternate variants and things like that. With such a limited card pool, obviously there's not going to be a lot of deck diversity, like at all. So I just wanted to point that out. That is a thing that is a point against it. Hopefully that is also just solved with more sets. There are 94 cards. As in 9-4 for all the cards. So it's just like, I'm not expecting like a massive amount, but 94 does feel small-ish for a beginning set. But I don't know, maybe that's just me thinking of like every other card game that's launched. And this is a smaller team, so, you know, doing that. But I do just have to look at it from the point of view from like a regular TCG customer. It is a pretty small offering. But again, hopefully it'll get bigger. Because hopefully this did well enough for them they can afford to do more. Let's see. So that's mostly it for my cons. I'm in general pretty positive about the game. I think it's pretty good. But I really do think that the price really is, it hurts. The price hurts. Price hurts. So let's talk about final ratings. How difficult do I think this game is? This is not included in the final score. This is how I think how hard it'll be to pick up. I think it's probably a 7, maybe an 8. If you've never played Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh before, you're gonna feel a little lost, and that was very evident at some of the tournaments. People did not seem to be able to pick up on it as easily as I think that they could. Well, not that I think that they could. They did not pick up on it as easily as others, is the big thing. It was not as easy to pick up as other games. Other VTuber card games specifically. Gameplay, it's pretty fun. I think it's kind of, it's interesting. There's a lot of combo-y stuff. I feel like it does pretty well. It's nothing to like write home about. It's not like the best of the cream of the crop, but it's pretty solid. And the fact that they're updating and eroding things so fast feels pretty good. Deck building, it looks pretty good from the onset. However, I've seen a lot of people talk about the very best pair of cards to use, like in terms of like leaders and things like that. So there might be a little bit less diversity, but I like the idea that if you want to build a Merryweather deck, the game not only incentivizes you to do so, but it's incredibly easy to do so. So if you really want to just focus on your favorite VTubers or things like that, the game is essentially built to let you do that. So I think that that's pretty good. Again, is it the best? No. Is it just nice and solid, which is why I give it an 8? Yes. Supplemental content, again, really good. Is it the best? No. Is it just solid? Yes. I think that the Discord answering questions is really nice. I think that the website updating its rule set is very nice. And I don't know. I just think in general it's pretty nice. Magic, the smaller set size might explain why the booster pack's only 5 cards. Magic ratio is typically 5% of the set, rounded down to +1. Oh, interesting. Good to know. Art, however, I'm knocking a point off the art. The art doesn't get an 8. I'm sorry. The art gets a 7. And again, this was addressed by Merryweather. This is going to be fixed for set 2. But for right now, there's enough of a mix of like art that I like and also art that I'm just kind of like, it's the model. And not to say that anyone's model is bad or anything like that, but it does kind of take you out of it when you can see the clear difference of the art quality here. And again, this is just me being fair. I think that that's a pretty fair rating. Now, however, the price hurts, guys. The price really hurts. It's a 4. It is so much more than the other card games that unless you really want to support it, it does. There's no other way to say it. It just hurts. So my final score for it is a 35 out of 50. Still pretty good. I think overall, in general, VRoyale has a lot of good room to grow. Some of the things that they've already talked about are getting 7 cards per pack instead of 5 for set 2. A starter deck in set 2. Merryweather has already confirmed better art. Like all the cards will have unique art for set 2. So I think that it just had a little bit of a rough start, mostly in part due to the problem with their initial partner. I think that is why it got knocked down as much as it did. Otherwise, it feels like a very solid game. However, I do agree with you, Major's Mask, that if this game doesn't take off, it's going to be only due to the price, when there are so many other games that have just as much and are like Oshi Push and Rift Runners are both very solid games for significantly cheaper, and you get more for it. So if VRoyale has problems, that's probably why. But who knows? That might change in the future. They, like I said, set 2, according to the stuff that has been asked or has been announced or talked about in the Discord, it looks promising. So I'm hoping that these values only go up over time. So finally, do I think you should buy it? If you want a pretty decent game that supports your creators, yeah, go ahead and buy it. I think it's a pretty good game. I think that there is a future for it, simply because I can't imagine Merryweather letting it die. I think it's just going to be a nice, solid, good game. So yeah, I think it's going to stick around. I think it's going to be good. And that is my deepish dive of VRoyale. I do want to point out a couple things that we kind of skimmed over when we were looking at things. Like the cards. There's a lot of text on a lot of these. Like, it's a little hard to see if we're looking at these slides. Like, that's a lot of text. There's a lot going on. You know? That's probably my only other real criticism of it is I don't really want. Does it use keywords? Oh, there's a bunch of keywords. There's a bunch of keywords. Well, I say a bunch. There's like 13. So it doesn't just use full sentences. There are keywords and things like that. But that almost makes it even crazier, the fact that there's this much text and also keywords. So if you get into this game, you're going to be doing a lot of reading, a lot of combo crafting, a lot of theorizing about everything that the cards can do. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's good. I think it's good. Let me see. Did anyone ask any questions that I didn't just answer in the middle of things? Nope. Okay. That's fine. Ending that Q&A. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this little presentation of VRoyale. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's good. I'm excited to see kind of where it goes from here, what they're going to do with it. And, yeah. Now I need to look at V Daishi, or I think is what it's called. The other VTuber card game. And then the Hololive card game whenever that comes out. Oh my gosh, there's so many VTuber card games, dude. There's just so many. I think that's gonna be it for me for today. I was so fired. This is the thing that always happens to me at the end of the stream, is I get through with the topic that I spent a lot of time researching and preparing for, and the exact second that I finish my thoughts, my brain just goes like completely smooth. Like, what was I even thinking about? That's funny. I just hope the gems don't get lost among the shovelware. I don't think they will. I don't think the gems are going to get lost if solely based off of tariffs right now. People are very hesitant to start up any new projects. Because they don't know what's going to happen. And that's totally fair. Tariffs suck, dude. Tariffs suck. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed my little breakdown of VRoyale. And like I said, in 2 weeks, I'll be doing a con appearance. And I think I got another one the week after that. I've got a bunch of con stuff coming up, so that's going to be fun. We'll be back on Wednesday for some more Just Talking shenanigans. Oh, also in 2 weeks is the birthday stream, which I think we're going to be doing on my... I need to announce the actual day that it's happening. I think we're going to be doing it on the 18th, since I will be busy on my actual birthday, potentially. I don't know. I will announce that next week, what day the actual stream will be on. So, but it's likely going to be the weekend. So, thanks for hanging out, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your time here. We're gonna make sure I try and edit this down into a nice little vidya for later. I'm going to send you guys off to... Sure, go say hi to Matara for me. Because why not? Why not? And over on Twitch, you guys can just say hi to whoever you want, because I don't know who to raid over there. I don't even know if any of my friends are live over there. They're probably not. Birthday planning time is running out. It's so true. It's so true. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, everyone. I hope you have a good, wonderful day. And I will make sure to put a timestamp up on the video for when the actual overview of VRoyale starts, so that if anyone wants to rewatch it and get that stuff, that they can. Other than that, I will see you guys all later. I hope you have a wonderful day. But for now, class is dismissed. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, also join the Discord. Hold on, join the Discord. I gotta link it before I leave. Join the Discord. Okay, goodbye.